Good morning, guys. Welcome to Fishful Thinker. I'm Chad LaChance, and I appreciate you joining us. You've caught me out in the Big Ranger boat. We're on Stalker Pond. We're at the State Wildlife Area in Northeast Colorado, one of the several hundred state wildlife areas that they have here in Colorado. This one's a warm water pond, and we're here today to show you some bass and some panfish. But the show isn't about necessarily this pond, it's about this style of pond, and there's a million of them up and down the Front Range, and we're gonna talk about fishing this kind of pond. Gravel quarry, small ponds, lots of vegetation, lots of warm water fish. So stay tuned, get comfortable, this should be fun.
Fishful Thinker Television is brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter. Peterson Toyota, Fort Collins, Colorado. St. Croix Rods, best rods on earth. Berkeley, catch more fish. Abu Garcia, for life. And Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
So as you look across here, guys, you can probably see that transition. Anytime you have that little transition right there where my bait landed, those transitions, you can see the bait splashing around, those transitions from sand to weed are really good. That's the inside weed line right there. That's where the weed line ceases to grow on the shallow bank. There's also an outside weed line somewhere out here that is the weed line where the light ceases to hit the bottom, which is going on out here. And typically one of those two weed lines will make all the difference in your catching in a lot of cases. On the bladed jig. That's why you get the bladed jig out, guys. And we'll just go ahead and swing him up in there, right there. And that's beautiful colors on that fish, guys. And the whole thing about a fishery like this with this crystal clear waters, look at the colors. I mean, they just don't get any prettier than that. And there's the swim jig with the Havoc beach shad on the back, or excuse me, the bladed jig, and that's a little tiny guy. But between these and all the Redear sunfish and bluegills and everybody else that's in here, it makes for a good pond. So Stalker representing early. No, you called that one right, bud. Oh no, it's a bass. So guys, as you can see, it's very bright sun, and we're a major post front. We had a huge cold front come through, and it's been raining inches, not a little bit of rain, like lots of rain for here in the West United States. And because the fish are so negative, right away we caught one on a swim on a bladed jig, but we just weren't getting the activity we thought we would. And so typical, you can feed fish or you can make fish react. And so what I did is I got a little floating chrome jerkbait, then I got another beautiful bass. And when you see that color, that's what you see commonly on gravel quarry style ponds, is that real green color like that. That's because the water's real clear, it gets lots of light penetration, the fish are laying in the grass, and so bass do a really good job of camouflaging themselves. In my mind, the prettiest bass you see anywhere in your travels come from the types of ponds that are real clear and weedy like that. In my home state of Florida, same thing. You get really dark colored, really pretty colored bass like that. Neat stuff. But all the gravel quarry ponds, you know, from the eastern plains all the way out, you know, out where we are, all the way up against the foothills themselves, fish really well, and they fish a lot like this pond. And so everything we do today here will carry over to pretty much any of the ponds that you fish. Just happens that we're out in a big boat today. Suspending jerkbaits, that's what everybody throws. You guys are probably familiar with that from a million episodes of Fishful Thinker. Suspending jerkbaits are great in a lot of situations, but they're not going to work for you on the top of this kind of grass like this, because you're going to be in the grass and hung up the whole time. This bait's only going to run, no matter what I do with it, it's only going to run a couple of feet at the most, and most of the time it's going to be more like a foot under the surface. And that's why it makes it such a good bait, you know, for drawing fish up in the sun like this, because it gives off a bunch of flash and a bunch of erraticness, and it just kind of gets them to pounce. You know, it's the whole thing. You're just playing cat and mouse with them, it just gets them to pounce. Big thing to keep in mind is you're not trying to take the bait to the fish. You're trying to bring the fish to the bait with this type of deal. So I don't necessarily want to throw it right in the cover. I want to throw it adjacent to the cover so that the fish can see it that might be in the cover and come out and get it. So I want to be the bait fish that's running in open water near the cover. I don't want to throw it right on the stump like I would with maybe a pitch bait, you know, a Texas rig bait, something like that. I want to throw it maybe 2 or 3 feet off the side of the stump so that the fish can come out and grab it, as opposed to hitting them with it. You can see the bait the whole time. It's only within a foot of the surface. If it runs right on the surface, there's too much waves. If it goes too far down under the surface, it's either in the grass or we just don't get the reaction from the fish. They just really, something about running just over their heads and real fast and erratic and shiny, and you know, I mean, I can see this bait out on the very end of a cast, and a lot of traditional bass guys will tell you that's too much color. You know, they'll see it from way out there. Well, I also think it has tremendous drawing power because they can see it from way out there, and it's clearly wounded looking. Water temperature is 61.5 degrees. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning, so I really expect in that temperature and our time of day that the fish want to be shallow, but with as much sun as we have and as clear water as we have, I doubt they're going to get right up on the bank. So I'd rather fish the tops of the shallow grass for now. And I'm not really all that psyched on trying to fish that stuff. I just don't think that they'll be buried in there at this water temperature and this condition. There's one, there's a big one right there. That's a big one. No, he ain't that big. He just smacked it going sideways. Hey, yikes, he clobbered that bait. I mean, that fish clobbered it. He was moving straight sideways. And guys, when we talk about fishing gravel quarry ponds up and down the Front Range, that's what you're looking for. There's a jillion of those. It ain't about this particular lake.
Fishful Thinker Television is brought to you by Ranger Boats, still building legends one at a time. Evinrude, spend more time on the water. St. Croix Rods, best rods on earth.
I've been to this pond, probably 10 times over the years, but I'm talking about 10 times over a 20-year period, and it's been about 5 years since I've been here, 4 years since I've been here. So everything changes in a pond like this in that kind of time frame. Vegetation grows up, areas silt in. In this case, Parks and Wildlife did a good job of planting more brush in here. You can see these piles of brush right here. Those are planted for the habitat for the bluegills and crappies and redear sunfish that live in here. Not to mention, obviously, the bass themselves. And so I'm kind of getting my bearings as I move around the pond, kind of see what's where are we seeing fish, what grass is green. That's really the big one. Where's the greenest grass? Where do I have depth up against my banks, things like that. And also keeping an eye out for anything that tells me bluegills or redear sunfish, because we would like to catch some of those while we're here as well. So that's kind of my deal, is I'll do a sighting lap all the way around the pond, figure out what I really like, and then I'll settle in and fish, fish for real in that area. But for now, we're still kind of getting our gauge of what's here. Oh, he's right there. He's right here. Got him. There he is. Oh, buddy, that's brutal. That's brutal. That's almost mean, bud. That's an almost mean trick. That's a good one too. Look at that chrome jerkbait, he swallowed it. Oh, buddy. All right, we're gonna let him burn for just a minute. He's gonna be a handful to handle. When I get him over here, he's not gonna be that easy to deal with, and that's a good one. So we're going to grab him like that. That'll work. All right, guys, give you one more quick look. Took a quick still frame. Let me explain one thing to you. We put this fish back and let her go about her business. And you can see she's just about spawning ready, it looks like. Let me tell you something that's extremely important, guys. These fish are very, very important that you catch and release them. Small ponds like this, not even necessarily just this one, but all of them up and down the Front Range of Colorado, down in Pueblo, there's a bunch of them, on the Eastern Plains, Southeast, there's a bunch of them. You have to protect the resource. I cannot stress how important that is. They don't stock big numbers of largemouth bass. These fish are self-sustaining. These are not like rainbow trout or walleyes where they stock them by the thousands. These fish, they do their own thing. They live in these ponds, they do their own thing. And so Parks and Wildlife does a great job of making sure they have the cover and the habitat they need, but push comes to shove, they need to make babies. So if you're gonna come out and fish in any of these small ponds, it doesn't matter where, you have to protect the resource, and we'll certainly do that all day today. If you're gonna eat anything at all, eat some bluegills. There's one, got him. There we go. Now, ironically, you guys see that stump way out there. I was making long throws, and he's a little tiny guy right here. The beauty of this type of pond too is it generally has, because they don't stock a lot of fish in here, it generally has lots of year classes, and this is for sure the smallest one we've seen. This fish is probably, I would say he's probably a 2-year-old, and because they are naturally reproducing, they're not stocked, it's all the more important to put these guys back as soon as possible. So you can see how shallow the water is, guys, and how calm it is over on this side of the pond and how clear it is. So you can see my bait way out there running. I don't want to get any closer to that than I have to, because I don't want the fish to feel the pressure waves from this boat. I don't want to see my shadows or anything like that. So the long throws is one of the reasons I throw jerkbait on thin braid. This is 15-pound tri braided line I have on here, and a little short fluorocarbon leader, but I can throw that thing a long ways from the boat and not spook fish. And I think that's a really key part, particularly for larger than average fish. The other side of it is, let's say there's one right there. There's the other side of it is when you're fishing the quarry ponds in Denver and stuff, you can make long throws and you can catch bass like this one after the other, or Valco ponds or Two Buttes or Echo Canyon or any one of the others that are just like this one, and that's looking pretty good in that clear water, guys. See how clear it is. And yeah, there you go. There's another perfect little largemouth bass, guys. And I think at this point, we're getting pretty close to wanting to go catch some bluegills, because that's a pretty little bass right there. There's a jillion of these available in here. I'm sure there's some bigger ones. We've only been here for a little while, but you can see that jerkbait got the bills paid yet again. A little chrome bait. Ouch, just got me. There you go. He's pretty, guy. And you can see they get the real nice green coloring on everything on them. That's that clear water. Watch how clear.
Fishful Thinker Television is brought to you by Lowrance. Find, navigate, dominate. Peterson Toyota, Fort Collins, Colorado. Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
You guys can see we found a bunch of these bluegills, and I wanted to catch a few of them and see what they are, because this pond has red-eared sunfish in it, and I have spent no time around red-eared sunfish, so I wanted to catch one, and I believe that is a bluegill. So we're gonna have to keep looking around, see what we can do. And it's just a little guy, but that's our primary food source in here for all the largemouth as well. So you can see a bunch of them, guys, up here on the sand. So I'm gonna throw it up on the sand so I don't snag any of the stuff if it hits the bottom, and just swim it out off of there. And that's how I can see a lot of them coming to get it. Right when it clears the sand is when they come and get it, just like that one did. I probably didn't need to hook set them quite that hard. But look at these little guys. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is my first experience with red-eared sunfish, and the Parks and Wildlife told me that about 75 to 80% of the panfish in here are red-eared sunfish. And so I have never dealt with them before. To me, that's very close to a classic bluegill. And in fact, I'm not entirely convinced that that one isn't a bluegill. But the opercle right here is typically going to be a little bit red. You're going to see some definite tint and barring to the fish right here as well. The isthmus real bright on these little spawners. I believe that is a bluegill. Again, he's very pink looking. That one is for sure a bluegill. Look at the crazy colors, the purples you see on the top of the back and the iridescence. I don't know if you can see that coloring coming in the sun. There's no problem catching these guys one after the other, after the other. And bluegills that are that size, or red-eared sunfish that are that size like we're catching, that's a good looking fish. Look at those guys in the clear water. Look at that. It wouldn't surprise me either when you're out fighting one of these to have a big old bass come rolling out of those weeds and grab onto that thing. That's a good size one here. Come on up here, buddy. Look at the colors on that thing. That to me is a bluegill, because there's no coloring on this opercle right there. That's a good size one, guys. Look at that. Those are good size bluegills. That is so awesome. These are big old bluegills. Ooh. He thumped it like to the point where I thought maybe I was a bigger one, and he just fully smacked it. All I'm gonna do with it is throw him up here, get up on the gravel where I can see it, and then just swim it just fast enough to keep it moving, keep the tail coming, and then one of them will come across and take a look at it, boom, just like that, and it works pretty good. Here comes a big one here. Got him. All right, dude, he just followed it down. That thing tracked it down for, what, 5-6 feet? They're willing participants. There you go, buddy, and I'll show you my little jig here. A good close-up of my little jig. It's a little Johnson grub, and it's unscented, unsalted, so it's actually a good little trout grub for unscented stuff, and that's the ice fishing jig. I got it at Sportsman's Warehouse. It's nice too. St. Croix makes these panfish specific rods. There's a good one there. Makes these panfish specific rods, and you notice I can throw that little ice fishing jig, you know, without any problem, and that's a little tiny jig. Look at him go, round and round he goes. That's a big one there, guys, look at that one. That's a nice looking fish right there. That is a gorgeous fish. That right there is it. And so you can see my little jig. That's a pretty fish, guys. Somebody following it. Got him. I can see the shadow come in behind him. And that's a good size one right here. And look at that little panfish rod do what it's supposed to do. And this one is a red ear. It's a beautiful fish. Look at this. I can see the red in the water even. Yeah, that's a good looking fish right there, guys. And it's very classically, you can see very distinct red on the opercle right there. Now I am hunting. Now that's a better one here, guys. Look at that. That's for sure one of the red ears. Look at that fish. Look at them go. And I'm told they get in here up to about 10 inches long, right here on the opercle. You see that little margin right around the edge right there, and the real yellow creamy isthmus on them. Well, that's a red ear. You see a little bit of red on the opercle right there, right at the top of the gill cover, right here. You can see he's got a little bit of teeth to him right here, a little bit more than a bluegill would typically have, and beautiful colors on him. Look at that thing. So cool, and you turn them different ways. Such a cool fish, guys. The grub itself's 1 inch long, but the tail's half of it, and they'll just grab that little tail. There's a good one there. And they'll get that tail, and then, you know, you'll feel them that they're on it, but they won't ever get a chance to get to the hook. But this one right here, guys, and with that, here's another beautiful red ear. We'll go down to the fish hatchery here momentarily. And like I said, the fish hatchery is literally right there. So Parks and Wildlife keeps good tabs on everything that's going on in this lake because they have, you know, personnel right here all the time.
Fishful Thinker Television is brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter. Ranger Boats, still building legends one at a time. St. Croix Rods, best rods on earth.
All right, so we're standing here with the hatchery manager at the Ray Fish Hatchery. Tyler, we're looking at a whole pile of crappies right here. What's the skinny on these crappies?
These are our brood stock. So every year, these 5-line ponds will put 50 males, 70 females per acre out here and hope to accomplish our 350 to 400,000 fry goal for the year.
350 to 400, so 50 fish will make 350 to 400, or 50 males and 50 females will make 350,000 fries in these ponds.
We should have a 500,000 fry to then raise up to 350,000 sub-catchable crappie.
So when I hear fry and crappie in the same sentence, I'm thinking batter and grease, but you're talking about little tiny fish fry. How big will you grow them before you release
Average
them?
2.5 to 3 inches. From this pond, they'll go into grow out ponds for another month or two and then get stocked at that point.
And they get fed out from there. Well, that's a pretty neat deal. Now, what other fish do you raise here at this hatchery?
We raise Redears sunfish, bluegill, channel catfish, hybrid grass carp, tiger muskies. We transfer some pike, stripers, wipers, walleye, sawguy.
All in this one hatchery?
All in this one hatchery.
All right, guys, so we are standing inside the hatchery building here at the Ray Fish Hatchery. And Tyler, this place is amazing. First of all, it's far more complex than I ever anticipated it would be. What's going on in here?
Mixture of 12-foot, 4-foot, and 3-foot tanks for raising every species of fish that we raise on this facility.
And that is what all's here?
Bluegill. Right now, we have bluegill in the tanks, tiger muskies, and we just finished up with walleye, striper, and wiper.
And how, you told me earlier, but how many walleyes did you raise this last year, or eggs?
We did 84 million eggs at this facility.
84 million eggs, guys, and that's why we talk so much about the catch and release on largemouth and things like that. These guys generate a huge number of walleyes, and it's a good opportunity for people to go eat some fish. Do you do some largemouth as well, or no?
We will stock largemouth out for another hatchery to ease the burden.
Look at all those bluegills. How many are there?
About 15 to 20,000.
15 to 20,000 bluegills, and they just swim in circle, and this whole system pumps and cleans everything, and filters or whatever, and you guys just feed them.
Yep. These will be the biggest of the big bluegill.
And how old are these fish?
These fish will be a month shy of a year.
So these guys are grass carp. These are the largest freshwater fish in the state, correct?
Correct.
How big will they get potentially?
Over 50 pounds.
50 pounds. Now we just saw some over here at Stalker Pond just a minute ago. So what's the story? These are sterile.
These are sterile. These are triploid, pressure treated to make them infertile so they can't reproduce in the wild, used mostly for vegetation control.
We're looking at tiger muskies, and that's of course a hybrid of a muskie and a pike. Correct. You tell me that these fish will cannibalize each other.
Constantly, all day long. We have to feed these fish 5% of their body weight twice a day to eliminate some of that cannibalism.
And these fish are how old?
These fish will be about 6 weeks old.
6 weeks, so they're wee little tiny fish right now. And you'll stock them out as 8-inchers.
Stock them out as an 8-inch schedule, end of September.
End of September, so they grow pretty quick.
So this is actually female pike, male muskie.
Really? So do they look different?
They look exactly the same.
So you got 3 sizes of tanks in here. Big tanks, you said 4 foot, and these are 3 foot tanks. And what goes in these?
3-foot tanks will raise all of our walleye, sawguy, wipers, and stripers for the year. Each tank will hold 800,000 to 1.8 million fish.
Amazing. Such a complex facility. I don't think anybody realizes what goes into managing warm water species like you might think.
Each one of these jars is a 9-liter jar. It can hold maximum of 5 liters of eggs, 150,000 eggs per liter. So 750,000 eggs in each one of these jars. And we'll hatch every walleye egg in all these jars. 84
million walleyes came through these jars this year. That's unbelievable.
We get them as fertilized, water-hardened eggs, and in 13 days, they're back in the lake as fried.
Walleyes, not only do we raise them in state, we trade them for other species that we can't get as well. So it's not just about stocking them for Colorado anglers, specifically the walleyes, but you know, the other species we get.
And we are the hatchery that does all out-of-state walleye trades.
That's our day on Stalker Pond State Wildlife Area and here at the Ray Fish Hatchery. And Tyler, very eye-opening facility you have right here. State-of-the-art, latest and greatest, millions of fish coming out of here. If folks want more information about this, where do they get it?
We'd love for you to come visit us or go to Colorado Parks and Wildlife's website.
There you go, and the hatchery's open 8 to 4?
7 to 3. 365 days a year.
There you go, guys. So stop by and see it. I recommend you do. I think you'd be surprised at what all's going on here. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
So important that these guys keep so many fish in the lakes around here, because the reality of the situation is almost none of these populations are self-sustaining. Without these guys, we wouldn't have it. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed today's show. Hopefully you'll tune in, and we'll see you next week.
Now for Berkeley's best catch.
Oh, he's right there. He's right here. Got him. There he is. Oh, buddy. That'll work.
Berkeley, catch more fish.
There we go. Oh, come on now. Got him. Oh, man. Oh, he's all over it. Yeah. And this is no different than fishing. Boom. Colorado, hey, dude, I'm not combobulated. Okay. We've been here. You can cut for a minute, I think. Actually, you can cut for a sec. All right, cut for a second. All right, cut out of there, and we'll go from there. That's awesome. I didn't realize you did that much stuff out here.